Welcome to Night Talks, the University of Florida College of Journalism and Communications talk show produced by students for students. I'm Gracie Davis, a junior studying journalism, and our guest today is Wendy Edwards, a CJC alum whose career has included a wide variety of roles within the live family entertainment space and touring museum industry. She's now executive producer and managing director of VStar Entertainment Group, which is part of the affiliate shows division of Cirque du Soleil Entertainment Group, one of the worldwide leaders in live entertainment. Hi Wendy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi Gracie.
You've had a fascinating career in the live entertainment industry. What does the live show experience mean to you personally?
The live show experience, it's just that, it's an experience, and you've got a group of individuals, and mine's definitely touring. I had 17 years on tour. So it's that camaraderie of a group on tour, crew, cast, staff, with one goal every day, and that's to get the show in and get it opened on time, because doors are going to open and show time's never going to change. And it's a lot of work and long days, but in live entertainment, you get the immediate payoff that night because you get to see the rewards of your work and the audience's reaction and interaction with the show. So all the hard work, by the end of that 16-hour day, you get your payoff. It's naturally there because your audience is experiencing your show with you every night.
As a native Floridian, were you always going to be a Florida Gator? What led you to attending UF, and what drew you to studying the communications field?
I was always going to go to a public school, and UF was the top of the list. The journalism college was well known at the time. It was very accredited and one of the top, not only in the state and the country. And UF in Gainesville, if you look at Miami, Tallahassee, Orlando, or the other cities, Gainesville offered such great outdoor recreation and other curriculum outside of just the education. Gainesville was always the top choice. UF was always the top choice. And the journalism school I spent junior high school a lot as editor of yearbooks. And so naturally progressed that was kind of where my passion was when I got out of high school. So I wanted to go into the journalism field.
I actually did the exact same thing. Junior high and high school, I was editor-in-chief of my yearbook. I helped start the program. And when I was coming up through high school, it was just always UF and the journalism college. And so I really relate to that. That's really, really cool. After graduating, you held various positions in touring shows, including audio engineer. Tell us about some of those roles.
I started in audio, and I learned the trade actually here at UF. I was flipping stage sets at the Orange and Brew, worked at the O'Connell Center, did some light changeovers at the Hippodrome, and then when the Performing Arts Center opened up, it was my junior year here when it first opened up, so I started working there doing concerts and events and learned the trade. I did audio, lighting, carpentry, props, but I liked the science behind audio. And so when I graduated, I got on tour. Audio was my foundation or my trade. And from there, it kind of progressed into, I did some stage management, went into production, technical, moved over to operations, and then eventually went over into director of production. My career's been very fluid, but I've been able to work in all of the kind of trades and fields that's kind of progressed my career. In the live entertainment industry, what's really great about it is you get to be fluid in your career. You can have lateral moves, you can have upward moves, and it just allows everyone to kind of take their foundations and then move into different roles. Most of my current team, started in lighting, props. We all have our bases, and now we've kind of moved up into director positions and higher management roles, but we still have our base craft that kind of supports us in what we kind of gravitate to and like to do.
Was there anything that you did specifically with the CJC during your time here that kind of led you towards working with audio?
The Performing Arts Center, but at CJC, it's a long time, but I recall maybe it was with the station, we used to go out and record seminars to play. So kind of doing a little bit of recording around campus, and it just that and mixing for shows at the Performing Arts Center was really what got me started and got me passionate about it.
You've been a director of production and a technical director and ran tour operations as part of your various scopes. What are the differences between these positions?
There's similarities and differences. If you think of the project triangle where they say it's time, quality, or money, and you only get two of them, a show doesn't work without those three. That they make the core triangle. Production focuses on sort of more the creative side of it, music, costumes, talent, casting, the creative teams, managing them. So they're all three, in a simplistic way, are project managers, but over their own areas. So production is the creative side, costuming, scenic, talent and casting, and definitely creative team management. Technical, audio, lighting, sound overlaps with scenic, but is more of that precision technical area. And then operations, they're kind of one, I call them the great Jim Cantoris of the world, because they always need to know what the weather is, because they're the ones moving the show, trucking trailers, logistics, moving personnel, and they're the problem solvers. If production has a problem, tech has a problem, they're looking over at the ops team to say, I need help, or support. So the three areas all are tied together for a successful project. They have their specialties, but they all work together and collaborate, and there's always overlap between them.
Which of those roles did you prefer working in?
At different times I've liked all three, I think, and they develop different skill sets. Operations is definitely, they're the problem solvers. They've got to keep the show moving. It's got to be, everyone's got to make their plane on time, the trailers have to deliver. There's so many variables that they face in operations, and they've got to be quick on their feet. Technical, there's a lot of science behind it, lighting, it's very precision work. You're having to be in sync with what's happening on show, especially if you're running front of house, because you are kind of an extension of the talent on stage, because you're hitting your cues as well. And then production, for new show development, you get that creativity aspect for it. So I think at various times, I've gravitated towards all three. I think I lean a lot these days with production and new show development.
And what are some of the biggest obstacles in making a show successful?
Oh, there's a lot. If for new show development, it's the unknowns. You've got a concept and you're trying to fulfill the intent of that vision, but there's such a journey from concept to execution, and you quite don't know, are you going to get the music rights to a song that kind of anchors the creative? Is the vision of the costumes really going to come out the way you intended with the scenic? And it's really a collaborative effort, and sometimes in the production side of new show development, if your creative team can't get along, or producers and the creative team don't have the same vision, you can hit a roadblock pretty quickly. I believe best idea at the table wins, no matter whose idea it is, because the ultimate goal should be the best show. On the touring side, it's the variables you're going to have. Domestically, a lot of the venues are constructed similar, right? But you go international, and a good example is when I was in audio, we were in France and we played a beef slaughterhouse. And it was a weird configuration that didn't work with the audio system. So I was having to re-engineer the system to work for that one building, because it was almost shaped like the Eiffel Tower. It was a bit crazy. And so the variables in touring are usually the venues. you could have a floor that's 22 feet, and this is very specific because I left it 22 feet short, so you're having to restage the whole show right before doors. Or another good example on the ops side was we were advancing to go into Barclays with a show, and 3 weeks advance with the event managers, the venue, everything we could think of, except it was the New York City Marathon that day. The trailers were trying to get into the building, you know, so it's like rolling roadblocks, and we're trying to figure out how to get the trucks in. And, you know, I get there and I'm looking at my contacts and we're like, yep, forgot that one. So it's the unknowns, and you can try to plan for all the what ifs in the world, but the one that's going to happen is the one you didn't think of.
You freelanced as well. Tell me more about that and what you did during that part of your career.
Freelancing was, you know, I worked many years for some large corporations and some large companies, and, you know, freelancing for me was a way to kind of go out and explore and expand my base. You know, freelancing can be a huge learning curve because it's a time-stamped project, and you get contracted with a team you might never have worked for on a project that you might never have done. One was the Copa America opening and closing ceremonies, which was brand new. I've never done either. So it was a 6-week project. My scope was the production and the tech of the opening and closing ceremonies. It was walking in to saying, here's the concept, here's what we want to do, go find the vendors, you know, help support the production and the talent and what the show program was going to be. The other one was operations and production for Kellogg's USA Gymnastics Tour. So when the team came back from the Rio Olympics, we did a 40-city, 10-week tour with them, exhibition of what their Olympic routines were. And there it was hiring the crew, hiring the vendors, and then running the operations of the tour from trucking, busing, and then being on site and just making sure all the various other contractors had what they need when we got into the venue. And, you know, so they were both new projects. They're really fast and quick, but freelancing helps you expand your world because you start building that network you need in the industry, and the network helps you get the next gig or get the next contract. And it also tests your ability. Like for me, it was like, do I know only what I know? And freelancing helped me to understand, yeah, I only know what I know. So I learned a little bit more by taking some time and freelancing for a couple of years.
In 2016, you began working as Director of Operations for VStar Entertainment Group. Tell us about this company and what prompted your move there.
So VStar Entertainment actually contracted me to do the USA Gymnastics Tour. So I did that for them as a contractor. And while I was on tour, my predecessor had left the company. So the CEO had asked if I would come and fill the gap for 6 months while he was recruiting for the position. 3 months into it, he was like, will you take the position? So it kind of led me, and one contract led me into the full-time position of VStar. VStar Entertainment's a family entertainment company. We do live entertainment shows, and mostly for demographics of 6 to 12. You know, we specialize in the 2 to 6 with our IP partners of Paw Patrol, Trolls Live. We take animated series and we adapt them and bring them to life through puppetry, costume characters. They're full, almost Broadway style shows. Everyone sings live. We have a full moving light rig, video. So yeah, it's kind of like Broadway style shows for kids, using animated series and bringing them to life on stage.
What was the transition like from freelancing and having those different contracts into that role?
A lot more responsibility for others. You know, when you're freelancing, you know, you have a responsibility to your client, to your contract, to your scope of work. With VStar in this role, it's like, as a leader, I had to support a lot more departments had to be responsible for their needs and make sure that they had what they need to do their jobs. And with VStar, the role kind of expanded. You know, I started out in touring operations and production, and then kind of moved up in the company as well with some other promotions, and took on larger roles for it. So you kind of have more responsibility to more people in a company, whereas when you're freelancing, you understand your limited project scope.
What did the position of Director of Operations entail, and how much work goes into the logistics and planning of a tour?
So Director of Operations, we're responsible for hiring the crew, the staff, trucks, trailers, DOT, venue advances, making sure that with collaborating with booking, if they want to put the show into a venue, does it fit? Can we get in? With operations, you always want to make sure you can get out of a building before you actually load into one. And transportation of the personnel, can you get there by bus? Do you need to fly? So it's really that broad map and schedule of a full year tour, connecting city to city to make sure that the show can fit, it can play, it can get there on time, it meets the needs of production, meets the needs for booking, meets the needs for the technical staff. So operations is that kind of big glue that makes sure that every department can actually go to that city and play the show and keep the original intent of the creative intact. Because you don't want to say you're going to play a venue, sign off on it, and then have to cut 50% of the production. So that's kind of the operations of touring and what I was doing at VStar.
A little over a year later, you became the Senior Vice President of Touring Operations and Executive Producer. What did this advancement mean for your involvement with VStar, and what did you oversee as SVP?
So as SVP, that umbrella kind of got larger, and it was more of corporate operations. So I oversaw VStar Entertainment's vertically integrated. So for touring shows, we do everything from ops to production, booking, marketing, finance. And we also had our own scenic and costume shop. So we were building our own shows internally. So Senior VP, I oversaw the costume shop, the fabrication shops, both costume and scenic. And then the corporate operations, I oversaw the facility. We built a new facility and moved in there. IT department, shipping and receiving. So I basically call the expense side of the company fell under me. So anything that wasn't revenue, all of us that spend the money kind of fell into that position. And then executive producer became the role of business development, finding the IP, finding the new show, bringing the creative teams together to create the new shows and develop the pipeline for the company so that we were producing new shows and putting new product out there.
In 2018, VStar was acquired by Cirque du Soleil Entertainment Group. How were you involved in that transition, and what did that represent for the future of VStar?
How I was involved in the transition or the acquisition was due diligence. When you're in an acquisition between two companies, the buying company wants to know everything. So financial models, financial reports, schedules. So it was a lot of due diligence of explaining to Cirque du Soleil who VStar was, what we did, and providing them with the information they needed for them to do their own due diligence. And it brought VStar into a bigger creative company. It allows us, Cirque du Soleil Entertainment Group, it's Blue Man Group, it's The Works, it's VStar Entertainment, and of course the parent company, Cirque du Soleil. So it just opened us up to a broader network internally of creatives and production. And again, we know what we know. So being part of a bigger company is you learn what you don't know.
Your role changes to executive producer a few months before the world shuts down due to COVID-19. How did this impact your job in the live entertainment world as a whole?
Well, for live entertainment, they said we were the first to shut down and the last to open, and it was true because of that sort of collective experience that you've got a lot of people in a space watching a show. So the shutdown, we closed the tours one by one, and then slowly, because the company was based in live touring, the fabrication shops supported theme parks and museums and all of that live entertainment experience. Slowly throughout the week, we just sort of shut down and different departments closed. And everybody kind of did what they had to do or looked for different positions. Some people moved out of the industry, others kind of took other positions or jobs waiting for the industry to back open or to come back open. For a while I didn't have work and was let go. But then they brought me back because they realized they needed more of an operations person than finance team or accountants, which was good. And then my role was slowly to get things prepared for when we opened, and to make sure everything was ready to go when we were finally allowed to go back into the theaters and the venues.
So what were some of the preparations that you guys made preparing to go back into touring?
Technical equipment, everything that sits for 2 years. We still had the shows, the tours in trucks and trailers. So it was, testing the electronics equipment. Does everything still work? Pulling out costumes. How did the costumes survive? What kind of cleaning was needed? So it was a small team that was like, okay, everything sat for 2 years. Does it all work? How did it deteriorate or not? Did it survive? Dust it off basically, so that we didn't have to do that once we were ready to go. Everything was kind of ready to go when we were allowed to go back and open back up.
As of 2021, you've been back as executive producer for VStar and now also managing director. What productions have you relaunched since returning?
We have relaunched 3 international tours of Paw Patrol, Race to the Rescue, The Great Pirate Adventure. We've opened up Nick Jr. Live in Mexico and did a new Race to the Rescue in Brazil. We brought back our 2 Paw Patrols domestically. Trolls Live toured for a year domestically. And then we did the new show development for Heroes Unite, which is the 3rd stage show for Paw Patrol. And we've opened up 3 Cirque Dreams holiday shows, which are seasonal Christmas Cirque style shows that tour domestically. So this year we have 3, and we're playing 78 cities in 7 weeks between the 3 of those. And all 3 of those productions were new, completely renew as of last year. And then we're currently working on another new project, 2 new projects for Nickelodeon. So we've hit the ground running pretty fast.
What do you look for when seeking out a new show or product?
So biz development, it's what is in, the public consciousness, is the product relevant? Is it trending? Is it in its ascendancy? Has it plateaued? Does it have, it's called a symphony platform or a flywheel, but does it have, consumer products to it? Does it have a series? Does it have a tentpole event such as a cinematic release? Is it streaming for the next 2 years? So it's kind of that, we call it the flywheel of, if you have a property, what else is in its orbit that's going to keep it relevant for, I would say, 4 years, because it takes about 18 months to find one and to get a new show out on the road, and then you want it to tour for at least 2 years. So you're looking for something with a lifespan of a minimum of 5 years in the kid space. And something you can adapt to the stage well, that creatively will translate. And with animation to stage, it's really like you've got to have that vision of how are we going to recreate this animated character into something that's authentic on the stage.
What advice would you share that served you in your career?
Your reputation is everything, especially in live entertainment, especially in freelancing. It is a small industry. It really is. And if your reputation's going to anchor you onto the next position, onto the next contract, onto the next recommendation, you know, and your reputation is how you treat others, your work ethic, you know, your skill too, but it's really that, you know, who are you as a person? That reputation really is going to get you to that successful pathway and move your career to where you want to take it.
There's a lot of innovation in media spaces, but what's changing in live entertainment?
A lot of things are moving towards, and a lot of conversations about active versus passive storytelling, how to create an active storytelling role in like a live theater show, where it's immersive or experiential, or is bringing in the person in an emotional way that brings that connection. A lot of co-viewership, especially in the family entertainment space, where the parents and the kids and the family can view together, and tying that in with the technology of AI or virtual reality, and how to keep the live experience live with the new technology, and where that line is before you're not creating a live experience anymore, but you're just creating another I'm sitting at home watching a movie, because the technology has crossed over and become too predominant, and you lose that live experience. That it's really how that active storytelling is how to take a live theater show you're watching and make it feel and be immersive enough where it's not a passive experience. And I think those are a lot of conversations that the industry is having post-COVID, and the balance of where that AI and virtual reality and the tech no longer makes it a live experience. And so those are the things that I think we'll see trending. How they are articulated or executed, I think we'll see in the next couple of years of really where the live entertainment space is going.
Thank you for your insight, Wendy. I really enjoyed learning about your career and how the CJC and UF kind of set you up to start building off that base of audio. And thank you, our viewers, for joining us. Until next time, good night.